bringing you inside the USL Championship and League One.
Segmer's got there, Marquinhos! He's been knocking on the door! He knocks it down!
Diving into all the biggest stories and top headlines.
You are ripping and roaring today.
This is USL All Access.
It's almost impossible to recreate that level of magic.
With Mike Watts and Devon Kerr on Sirius XM FC.
Welcome, everybody, to USL All Access on Sirius XM FC. This beautiful Tuesday, August 6th evening. And what a delightful treat we have for you today. Because, yes, Mike Watts is, in fact, out walking the cat once again. My man takes more sabbaticals than he knows what to do with, even though he's not a tenured professor. To be fair, he's not a professor anywhere in the USL lore. But I digress. We've got Joseph Malfa with us. We've got Danny Cruz from Louisville City. We're going to be interviewing him later. We're going to talk results, trends, astronomical ideas that were once a player for one team turned foe, turned whatever folly of a verbal atrocity that he decided to give to then try and perform a result. I'm leading you in a direction that we're going to get to here in a minute. But let's go back to the most important thing is that Joseph Malfa was kind enough to join us. I say Joseph because that's how he's addressed any point in time he decides that he doesn't want a tomato. We'll get to that in a second as well. For anybody that doesn't know who Joe Malfa is, Joe Malfa, great ascending announcer in the United States soccer pyramid, does men's and women's literally at every single level. It's MLS, USL, and WSL, League One, League Two, college. There's some badminton in there. Joe, great to have you. Did I miss any sports, my friend?
No, good to be here. I think we can leave out curling until it gets closer to winter time again. But in the spirit of the Olympics, I'm glad you brought up badminton because if you tune into badminton during the Olympics, it's intense. They are going for that shuttlecock every single time they have an opportunity. It's fun to watch.
Okay, so to be clear, in your Olympic package, which to be fair, you are on Olympic sports, right? We're both on Olympic sports. Soccer's an Olympic sport. When it comes to college, they call it the Olympic package. If you are actually at the Olympic level, what's the most obscure sport that is currently accepted at the Olympic level that you would want to cover and why?
Ooh, that's a fantastic question. I would honestly have to say, wait, winter or summer? We got to be specific here.
No.
It's just general.
Dealer's
Open
choice.
Entirely.
Dealer's choice. Yeah.
It's a little more popular just because you see it on TV sometimes. I love water polo. I mean, you've got Doc Emmerich used to always call those because it's like the closest summer Olympic sport, I guess, that you have to hockey. And it's just fantastic. I mean, it's just, I don't understand how people can do that physically. So I'm amazed by it, but also it's fun back and forth. And yeah, I feel like that's one of those that, look, if pickleball's on TV nowadays, and no disrespect to the pickleball community, but if pickleball's on TV, I feel like something like water polo could catch on if somebody gave it a shot.
Yeah, pickleball for me eventually is going to end up in the Olympics. I mean,
absolutely.
I'm not taking
anything away. They have 3-on-3 basketball.
Exactly. There's 3-on-3 basketball. Yeah. There's skateboarding. There's BMXing, ping pong. Not taking anything away from those sports, but pickleball's got some real heat behind it. Do you play pickleball?
I've never tried, and I don't have any intention of trying.
Do you like anything pickled? Because you don't like tomatoes.
I
the only Italian-born person that I know for everybody at home that does not eat tomatoes.
I will sit in the afternoon and have a snack of just like dill pickles. I love pickles.
I saw a clip on Instagram today of a person who you soak the potatoes, right? You slice potatoes, you soak them to remove the starchiness from it when you're trying to utilize them and from a culinary standpoint, and then pickles them with a brine and then fries them. Apparently that, yeah, I'm
that sounds
this.
Good.
You know me, man. I'm like all over when it comes to food and trying to cook some things up, and it's certainly something that I'm going to chase in the future. By the way, if you were wondering, mine would be curling.
That's very common. I wanted to stray away from the norm. It's a very basic answer because how popular it got last time. I think water polo's next in that endeavor. I think it really is.
Yeah, I'm with you. Exciting. Speaking of cooking, some crazy results on the weekend. Louisville over New Mexico. Pittsburgh over Sac. You were on that game. We're going to get to all of these. Tampa Bay Rowdies in a crazy finish, which we're going to get there. The number one for me, just because of the background of it all, in terms of headlines, was the transfer by Panos Armenakas to Memphis 901 FC, obviously leaving Phoenix Rising. We're going to start with the quote by the club. We can talk about Panos's reaction after the fact. and some interesting little trends that you found. And then I'll have a say as well. Phoenix Rising has transferred midfielder Panos Armenakas to Memphis 901 FC for an undisclosed fee. I wish I could disclose that fee because it's one of the greatest bits of business that I've ever heard about in USL Championship history. Shout out to Bobby Dooley in the front office of Phoenix Rising. Phoenix Rising holds its values of trust and togetherness in the highest regard, said President Bobby Dooley. In keeping with these principles, we have decided that parting ways with the player is necessary to uphold the integrity of our club. This action underscores our commitment to maintaining a cohesive and positive environment within our team. We remain steadfast in our dedication to our club and supporters as we move forward. We wish Panos the best of luck in his career. Number one, shout out to me and my reading skills because I've really been focused on that with my children at home. I got through it. Sometimes I stumble, so I'm really happy with that. Joe, I would ask you this on the first part of it. In terms of the sporting side of things, what does his transfer from Phoenix mean to Phoenix? What does his transfer to Memphis do for them?
It's tough to answer that in a vacuum because if you listen to that quote, and I won't make you read it again because I know you did so well the first time, but if you listen to that quote, it's hard not to think that there's addition by subtraction there for Phoenix. Obviously, like there's going to be some sort of technical and tactical aspect of missing him, but sometimes the whole net positive of losing somebody like that, and again, if you go back and read that again, that sounded like the nicest way of saying see ya that you can possibly hear.
Yeah, GTFOH.
Yeah, that's a nicer way to put it. So I don't think you can just simply take it as a tactical thing because you know what the mood of a team can get like, and if you go back with the benefit of hindsight and kind of look at the games where maybe he disappeared or he came in off the bench, and it just seemed like there was a rift there in hindsight that now you see more 2020 because you know the end result. So I think you have to keep in mind all the off-field stuff when you're weighing the on-field stuff as well.
Well said. There are a couple different levels here for me. Let's start with the sporting side. I agree with you. Certainly a talented player.
Yeah.
No doubt about that. A guy who, as you want from a tactical perspective and in those advanced roles, fancies himself, is positive, always very professional when it came to my one-on-one interaction with him. We'll never forget that when he came into this league via Loudon and Ryan Martin at the beginning of 2023, saying that even prior to playing a single game that he was the best player in this league. Let's be clear, you are not. Not when you entered, nor are you now. And there's nothing wrong with that, right?
There's a middle ground there. He doesn't have to be the best, but he's also a big reason why Phoenix won the Cup last year. So like, there's certainly a middle ground there.
He is a reason. I would not say he is the big reason.
Fair enough.
No, I would say he is a reason for sure. If you wanted to lean on the statistical anomaly that was Arteaga at one point in time, absolutely. If you want to talk about the impact that Carlos Harvey had in the midfield, for sure, right? John Michael on the back line defensively, right? Rocco Rios Novo in goal. Like, they were all pieces that, to me, carried more weight than Panos, but certainly an important piece to that group. Here's my problem, because the fan base itself is up in arms as to how this is handled and what went on. That cockiness, that arrogance, and there is a difference between the two, let's be fair, carried over to a point that pissed me off, and here's why. There are a lot of things that I've heard about clubs over the years. Panos' comments about food and the way that players were treated, I won't stand for it personally. Because I can tell you firsthand knowledge, probably close to, if not more, than a dozen other teams who do not treat their players in a positive manner overall. That's not saying that they're violating the CBA. That's saying that if I went into the league right now and had to give you 3 or 4 teams that said, that's how you take care of a player, the best learning, training, eating environment around the entire league, Phoenix would be right there at the top. Louisville would be another one. Like, there's your balance in the East and West. So when the player came out and said, they don't take care of us, they don't do this, do that, you're full of it, 100%. Get off your high horse, because you shouldn't be making those comments in general because they're not true. Number 2, you don't carry enough weight at all. Let's be very, very clear. Because statistically, In 45 games for a club, you produce 6 goals and 6 assists. Shut your mouth. And I'm this angry and this frustrated because we've worked so hard for players to get themselves to a spot where things are becoming equal, where things are getting to a point of we're taking better care of them and this, that, and the other. When you run your mouth and start spreading lies that aren't true, you're not progressing this movement at all. You're backtracking. And that's the problem that I have with it. To be clear, I would say this about any player that was telling a lie about a club, right? If Paolo Del Piccolo was coming out saying Louisville doesn't take care of us and this, that, and the other, bro, you're full of it. Like, I would call him out as well. It just so happens to be in this situation. I believe in Panos. I think he's a good person. I think Stephen Glass will be a great manager for him there to help him see the light and point him in the right direction, but uncalled for and flat out lies about players not being taken care of. Okay, now that BS is done, we did have something on the back end. Well, I thought his quote interesting enough to what we just talked about.
You want to read it again, or you want me to read this one?
I'm going to read this one.
Okay,
and
you're
going to tell me the results on the back end. I wouldn't have come here if we didn't have the chance to win. People on the outside might not think that, but I'm sure we'll shut them up eventually. Well, case in point, there's what I was talking about on the aggression and maybe some of the cockiness. You actually found some things that coincided with this.
Some synergy here.
Give it to us.
Synergy here. After that quote, his first appearance for Memphis turns out to be a 0-0 draw against El Paso. And sorry to El Paso for the stray that you're about to catch, but it was a 0-0 draw against El Paso. Panos was a sub. That was El Paso's first point since June 15th in a tie against Phoenix, where Panos also subbed in. So there's a little bit of symmetry there, and maybe the quote didn't age well, and it didn't take long for it not to age well.
Humility ages well. A little bit of humble pie never hurt anybody, and I hope it benefits the player for sure. I hope by the end of the season.
I was just gonna say, I hope by November he can come on here as a guest and say, "Told you guys, here's a championship for Memphis." And if that happens, here's your invitation.
I just rocked 6 goals and 6 assists in 12 appearances, and I got a star above the crust because of my performances. Boom! I can't wait to see that happen. Absolutely. Another interesting one on the weekend. I'm assuming you caught it, Joe. You sleep less than I do and watch more film, probably. Not true, but we're at least hand in hand on that.
Tampa Bay Rowdies part is close, maybe.
But... Yeah. The Tampa Bay Rowdies weekend fiasco, wacky finish, as I put it in our rundown, in what was the 2-2 draw against Monterey. For people that didn't see it, there is a passage of play on the far side of the field. The correct call would be to award it to the Tampa Bay Rowdies because the touch from Monterey goes out of bounds. It's clear as day. You can't miss it. Referee actually awards it in the direction of the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Monterey picks the ball up, throws it, goes down, scores the game-tying goal in added extra time, which at that point was like the 92nd minute, and there was 95 overall. I think your initial reaction for you and I behind the scenes was great. And it was what, Joe?
My reaction is, as wrong as the call was, if you watch it, I don't have any pity for Tampa Bay because a lot still happened after that and people were standing around. And the number one thing that you learn from U7 soccer is play until the whistle. And they didn't play until the whistle in stoppage time. So that's on them for me. Granted, again, watch it. Mistake shouldn't have happened, but it still should not have gotten to the point that it did.
Mistake, agreed. Shouldn't have happened 100%. You wonder for the referee in the moment, as they are human, hard to believe, that they were confused as to maybe if they made a mistake or not, and thinking, oh, I pointed this way, but the player picked it up and started going that way. My linesman is doing the same thing. Maybe I was wrong and I'm letting this go. I would also have liked the linesman in that situation to say, you got that wrong, blow this play dead, which should have happened. No. I called that. Hang on. Like, even if the referee thought that they were wrong, and Joe, your extensive knowledge, which I give you a hard time on, but I usually am very appreciative of, referee points one way, play starts, even if in his mind he thinks there is right or wrong, whistle, done, conversation with the sideline official, no, Monterey picked that up inappropriately, this is a Rowdies ball, let's go this way. You with
100%.
me?
Yep, 100%. And I don't know exactly, this is getting way down in the weeds, if it'd be a throw-in for Tampa Bay or a drop ball from there, but either way, it's a different result than what you get. So
wow, I know we're we're limited on time. Obviously, we've got a lot going on this weekend. As mentioned, Danny Cruz right around the corner. A couple of notable results that I want to talk about before I get us to break. Maybe we can break it down a little bit further later. Louisville back to first place, atop the USL Championship with their win over New Mexico United in the Western Conference. New Mexico United, by the way, who was seeking to become one of the first teams in the past couple of seasons, as we talked about last year, going unbeaten at home overall, started the year 6-0-1. Now back-to-back losses, so that's out the window. Louisville, on the other hand, goes on the road. Had a good conversation with Danny Cruz prior to the game as to where he felt that they were at, and certainly feels that he probably feels that they're in a lot better position now. Again, we're going to get an opportunity to talk to that manager here in a couple of minutes. Joe, before we go to break, I want to talk to you about the one result on the weekend that you were a part of. Pittsburgh Riverhounds against Sacramento Republic. ESPN on the weekend, obviously a great platform, as was the Detroit City Rhode Island game on CBS. But you specifically were on the call for Pittsburgh, and now 4 games unbeaten, 3 wins in their last 4, including taking down one of the best in the Western Conference, Sacramento Republic. Tell me what you saw.
First of all, I know that you and I aren't entirely sold on the Oakland Roots sitting in third, but have some issues to clear up. They're sitting in third still. So part of this run for Pittsburgh is Sacramento and Oakland. So that's 2 top teams in the Western Conference, not just one of them. But they looked really good. They looked like a lot of Bob Lilly teams of years past. You and I had the match in the midweek between Detroit City and Hartford, and you had mentioned it for a different reason in that game, that the Pittsburgh midfield was coming alive between Walty, Griffin, and Mertz, and they dominated the midfield against Sacramento from my perspective. And that was a midfield for Sacramento that featured Luis Felipe, that featured Nick Ross again, and the typical guys, just Portillo in there as well. So it wasn't like it was a half-strength Sacramento. It was a full-strength Sacramento, full-strength Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh won that matchup. Pittsburgh was terrific defensively. Eric Dick had a few saves that were highlight reel worthy, but there weren't too many opportunities for Sacramento. They had 2 or 3 really good ones that he made saves on, but after that, it was a struggle getting through that Pittsburgh midfield. Pittsburgh was very, very good on the counter, just lumping it forward toward Edward Kiza and the group. Kiza got the goal. He's hot right now with 5 on the season. Don't sleep on him. And there's a conversation you and I are going to have later on in the show about the playoff picture. Pittsburgh's coming. Pittsburgh's really coming.
Before we get there, we're going to talk to Danny Cruz in the Eastern Conference of the USL Championship, currently sitting on 47 points after 21 games played. And yes, this is not a typo, plus 29 goal differential, which is pretty freaking incredible. Second place, by the way, are the Charleston Battery, who, although only 1 point back, are also 2 games behind, meaning Louisville theoretically could be 7 points up on the second place contender, not just in the Eastern Conference, by the way, but also for the Players' Shield. Let's talk to Danny Cruz when we come back from the break. There's still a lot to go on, by the way, and I wonder exactly how Danny Cruz feels like what sort of pace they're on in the USL Championship, and what could be a record-breaking season as one of the best ever to go down in USL Championship history. You're listening to USL All Access on Sirius XM FC. Don't go nowhere.
Let's get back to USL All Access on Sirius XM FC with Mike Watts and Devon Kerr.
Welcome back, everybody. USL All Access on this beautiful Tuesday evening, Sirius XM FC, August 6, 2024. And do I have a treat for you? I told you we had someone special joining us. So whether it's time on the personal side of things, certainly we've shared some fun times off the field. You know, there's the Philly background, there's the Louisville background. I decided to go get one of my best friends and coaches in the entire world, John Hackworth. He wasn't available, so I brought Danny Cruz in instead. Danny, how we doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. What an intro. What an intro. Good to see you. Great to be here.
All jokes aside, if you've lived under a rock in the American soccer pyramid over the last decade and a half, incredible player, great coach, most importantly, in my opinion, beautiful person. I truly mean that. The times that we have shared, both personal and professional, don't take them granted, don't take them lightly. And if you ever get the opportunity to pick the brain of head coach Danny Cruz of Louisville City FC, who is absolutely throttling the USL Championship right now, sit down, take a moment, take a deep breath, and ask whatever is the most important thing in your mind, because he's going to spew knowledge. Let's steal some of that knowledge right now. Louisville City, once again, and I apologize to all the people at home that have probably heard this before, but at this point in time, atop the Eastern Conference, at this point in time, it's most goals, best goal differential, most points, still got games in hand. Kind of give me the lay of the land. What's the state of the union right now in Louisville City and Brownwater World?
Yeah. Look, so far up to this point, it's been a great year. We brought a lot of new guys in. We've got a lot of guys that have come together. They're very close, both on and off the field. I think that's really important from the culture aspect. And you have a lot of guys that want to push each other to be the best every single day. I think there's a clear understanding and expectation when you come to this club, to similar to, as you just alluded to not take a day for granted. I certainly feel I have a group that does that day in and day out. At the same time, they're a joy to work with. So there's not a day that goes by where I don't enjoy being here, and I don't enjoy the people that I work with through the ups and the downs. And I think that's the testament to obviously the club, and the players and the people that we're fortunate to be working with every day.
Louisville City established in the USL Championship in 2015. They've been to the Eastern Conference Final every single year since their inception. They've got 4 Eastern Conference titles. They've got 2 stars above the crest. Seems like every single year we're having a conversation about them, reinvented in some way, but always chasing glory, always chasing titles, and most importantly, always being relevant. But that is because of that culture, right? It was established under James O'Connor. That torch was passed to John Hackworth. John Hackworth passed it on to you, and you've taken it and run with it. Previous iterations of this team, there were always the familiar faces, right? It was always the Del Piccolos. It was the George Davises, the Luke Spencers. And while certainly you still have Niall McCabe, an original from that 2015 team, the only remaining member, and you've still got Sean Tosh, who arrived just shortly after, there are a lot of new faces. You and I discuss all the time, the most difficult thing to do is to bring someone into that environment, because you guys, because of the success, you could probably get your hands on any player that you wanted to bring them in and say, this is the best player. But that doesn't mean it's the best player for your organization. So kind of walk me through the game plan in the offseason where there was going to be so much turnover. I'm assuming you anticipated that, and what the plan was to go and attack it.
Yeah. As you said, it starts at the beginning with James, obviously, and the players that he brought in and the culture, that they instilled here at this club. Obviously, then Hack comes in, and we're talking about the same thing, right? The ideas of culture and values and what they mean to the players every single day. I'm fortunate to have been able to learn under Hack for a long time. And now still under James, obviously, as the president, him and I work day in and day out together. And I'm grateful for both of those relationships and how they've helped mold me. And to be quite frank, how I've learned so much from them. When we look at the building of the roster, we are years ahead as we build. So we try to do a very good job of putting ourselves in a position where we have clear ideas of who we want to go after. We have clear player profiles of who we want and where we want them. We're very big from a data analysis standpoint, and we go through all our pillars as we build towards deciding if we're going to bring a player in or not. One of the biggest things that I learned from last year, in a year that was obviously, it's no secret, a little bit more difficult when you talk about the regular season, was some of the questions and things that I want to answer and that I want answered when I'm in the interviews with these players prior to them getting here. I learned a lot from that experience last year. I think I changed some of my questions. I think I did a little bit more digging and a little worked, I would say, a little bit more on really trying to understand the individual prior to choosing to sign them. Went through that process this offseason, and I can honestly say to you, not one player that we've brought in this year was any different or anything than we expected. They've been brilliant from a culture aspect. They understand from the leaders in the group or the guys that have been here what it means to play for this club. And we did something a little bit different this year because there were so many players. I went through the history of the club with every player on day one to really make sure that everybody understood what it means to play for this club and this community. And we've had nothing but buy-in since day one. We've pushed them hard. And I have a group that constantly wants to be pushed harder, which is, as as a coach, it's a dream to be around every single day.
Talking with Danny Cruz, head coach of Louisville City, sitting atop the Players Shield race. I guess that's the name that we're still, utilizing for the number one overall seed in the USL Championship, winner of the regular season. Atop the East, atop the conversation of all 24 teams. I want to talk about one specific position to start off, because historically, again, there's been the names on the back line in the midfield, certainly the strikers. To me, there's always been one position outside of one player that you guys always rotate, and it's at the goalkeeper position. I was kind of thinking about it, and I'm like, all right, there was Greg Jetsing, 2015 to 2018. He then followed James O'Connor when James had his opportunity to become the head coach at Orlando City. And then I went back and I tracked it, and I was like, man, that 2019 team, I've certainly had a laugh with you about it. I've had a laugh with Hack about it as well. Dobrovolsky, Hubbard, Clark, Holt, Lunt. At one point in time, you guys were just throwing Plato back there because everybody kept getting injured, and you were hoping that you could try and piece something together. Chris Hubbard was there for 3 years. I remember him being the starter a little bit at one point in time. Certainly was the starter when it came to the team that made it to the 2019 final. You had Ben Lunt on loan twice. Certainly he did great things for the club. Kyle Morton, great season, and unfortunately ran into some medical issues after 2022. You identified Ali Zemla, loved that pickup, and then took advantage of it, sold him to the Philadelphia Union. He's now at the MLS level. And then you get Damian Loss. And where I'm going with this is, it always feels like you guys have the right player in that position, but never necessarily for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Walk me through it. It's just kind of like, out of every other position on the field, that's the one where you think maybe that might be the staple, but that's not the case for you guys.
Yeah, so some unique circumstances in all those different players. Ben Lunt at the time also was dealing with a foot injury that made us want to continue to make sure that we were on the market looking for somebody to bring in. Kyle Morton, as you alluded to, he was incredible for us. That was a really big injury that I think hurt us. He was playing quite a bit, obviously. But our goalkeeper coach, Scott Budnick, this is a guy that has been around for a long time in the soccer world. He does an unbelievable job of scouting goalkeepers, even during the season. He could give you a list right now of 30 guys, with Damian just being on loan in case, something were to happen. And I think these goalkeepers come here, they do a really good job. A big reason of that is Scott. And then other teams want him, or they want him back, and they want him back to play if they're on loan. So it is, I would tell you, we would obviously prefer to get a goalkeeper signed to a long-term deal, which is what we had in Kyle, obviously. Injuries obviously are what they are, and we still keep in contact with him because we want him to do well. But it's more being proactive and understanding that, we weren't looking to obviously sell Ali. Opportunity came, and we try to do a good job here. I think we've shown that, of putting players in positions to progress in their career. And when that came up, we tried to make sure we could get a deal done that was good for the club, and obviously good for Philly as well. So there's a lot of moving pieces at the goalkeeper position, but I can tell you that is not my ideal way to structure the roster. As you said, I don't really do that anywhere else on the field.
6 players with at least 4 goals, 12 players with at least 2 goals, 14 goal scorers overall. I use that as the main number here. I know the goals tend to pop out for people at home. To me, it's much more than that, because it's not just the goals that you're scoring, it's how you're going about doing it. And it's Wilson Harris, and it's Ray Serrano. It's Jansen Wilson, it's Elijah Winder, it's Taylor Davila. It's almost every single player on the field having the best year of their careers. When I'm asked about Louisville City and what the quality of play is this year, I say that in my time in the USL Championship, it's one of the best teams I've ever seen. And we have a long way to go to complete that year of exactly what it looks like. But did you anticipate every single player having a season like this, and you guys being where you're at. You want that for sure. And everybody's going to sit up on the podium and say, of course, we wanted success. We want to win every game. Absolutely. I wanted to be a billionaire by the time I was 2. That didn't necessarily happen. So kind of, I guess, in your mind, how did you get everybody to have these seasons? Because it seemed like from day one, boom, ball was on the deck, clicking, guys were playing lights out.
Yeah, so I would tell you before we came into the season, we felt really good about where our roster was at. No question about that. Obviously, big injury to Brian there early in late in preseason, but we still felt we had the depth to go do something special. The point that I felt really good about our group was probably the last week in preseason. We played some very tough opponents in preseason this year. And listen, I've been there where you're playing an MLS team in preseason, and we all know what that can be, right? But we went and played against teams that were playing, their starting group prior to Champions League, as an example. And I felt that I had a group that was, most importantly, and you and I have talked about this, they were relentless. By the end of preseason, we felt really good about where we were at. Now, at the same time, and we said this to the group, you don't win anything in July, right?
Yeah.
You still have a long way to go, as you alluded to. But it is a group that I know has the mentality that you need to go lift the trophy. It is a group that I know is never complacent as far as, whether we won a game at home here earlier this year, 5-1, training on Tuesday was just as hard as it was on Friday, and those are signs of a good team. And I think most importantly, you have a group, and this is unique for sure in my time as a player and a manager. You have a group of players when someone's not playing, they want the person in front of them to do well. And if they don't do well, they know they'll get a chance if they train well and do the right things and are a good teammate. And that has been key this year. No question. Amadou Dia is an example. I started him against New Mexico because he's been training very, very well. Jake's also been playing very, very well. But Amadou Dia, T is what he goes at here, as here. He's been wanting Jake to do well and looking to help improve him and trying to give him the wisdom and the advice that he has as a veteran player. And that for me is the sign of a team that is extremely close, both on and off the field. And when times get tough, and they do get tough every season, we've obviously lost games this year. Those are the things that, for me, that push you forward.
For people that don't know, you and Mark Briggs, your opponent, the head coach of Sacramento Republic on the weekend, you share a very special relationship. Am I allowed to talk about that? Number one, before I get myself into trouble.
Long as he's okay with you talking about it. Yeah.
It's on his resume. It's the only reason he gets any notoriety is his tie to you. Come on, man. You know that. So you are the godfather to Mark Briggs' son, correct?
That's correct.
Awesome. Have you reached out and asked him for the game plan on the weekend as to what his dad's going to do to try and dethrone you guys?
Well, he's not at the age yet, but if he was, I definitely would, no question. But I'm looking forward to seeing him this weekend. Obviously, somebody that I started my coaching journey under, someone that I have a lot of respect for, that I still have a lot of conversations with about soccer, about life, obviously, and always have and I always will wish nothing but the best for him. He's an incredible coach who I'm fortunate to have worked under. And as I said, without him, I don't start my coaching journey, right? That's the reality. He gave me my first chance. And that's something I'll forever be grateful for.
Any, before I let you go here, any vengeance in the back pocket considering the 5-0 that was last year?
Absolutely. I didn't, my whole family was there. I didn't see any of them. I didn't talk to any of them. I walked off the field. I went to my hotel, locked my hotel door, and I sat in there and didn't talk to anybody. I mean, it was embarrassing. I hope that we can at least put on a good performance for people watching. I'm sure it's going to be a really good game. Two very good teams that have, I think, I would like to say, clear ideas of how they want to play. And my hope is it can be as entertaining as most of our games here at home have been up to this point. Although the way that he is defensively, it's going to be a tough opponent, no question.
Always appreciate the time, buddy. Great to see what you have done, what you guys continue to do, and can't wait to see what goes on in the future. I appreciate the time.
Appreciate you, brother. Good to see you.
There goes head coach Danny Cruz of Louisville City. Again, if you haven't paid attention, you are missing out on something special. They will take on Sacramento Republic Saturday, 8 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN2. You're listening to USL All Access on Sirius XM FC. We'll recap some of the weekend scores, talk about some of the trends, one of which is that Sacramento Republic team and historically what they are looking to do on the road against Louisville City. We're also going to talk about the top 8 currently in both the East and the West as to whether or not they should remain come the end of the year. Stick around.
Giving insight to all the biggest moments in Championship and League One. This is USL All Access on Sirius XM FC with Mike Watts and Devon Kerr.
Welcome back, everybody, to USL All Access on this beautiful Tuesday evening, August 6, 2024. I got the name, the date, the day, the time, and the place right. This is USL All Access on Sirius XM FC. I'm Devon Kerr. Mike Watts is walking the cat. Joe Malfa joins me again after he was bathing the cat. Who knew that was a thing? And Danny Cruz, very big of him to join us.
Well,
that is a short joke.
Well, but that's what I was going to ask you here. So I'm filling in for Watts. You're obviously still on the show. Danny's a guest. Is this the worst average height of a USL All Access taping ever? Because Danny and I both bring it way down. You're what, 6'5"?
Legal, I am 6'6".
Legally, you're 6'6".
That's what the license says. I may or may not be 6'5" and 5/8", but the federal government documentation says 6'6", so I'm rolling with it.
My federal documentation says 5'6", so we're already a foot apart.
We are miles apart.
5'8". Danny's still taller than me. He's still taller than me. He's still taller than me.
On a good
I have
day.
to admit,
maybe
he's still taller than me.
Yeah,
he's still taller than me. This is the
he's
first
not even
All
here to
Access.
defend himself.
I know, but I'm complimenting him because he's taller than me. He's shorter than you, but he's taller than me.
I'm going to be very clear to make sure that this clip right here makes its way back to the Louisville City front offices and that I did not instigate it, outside of maybe a little nudge coming back in. Well said, by the way. And yes, you are probably correct that this is the shortest height average that we've ever had on the show. Who knew? But hey, we can still get the 2-seater go-kart, and I'm okay with that.
That's fine.
It's a solid adult lemonade, and you and I are on our way at Disneyland. Not saying that that's something that needs to happen for everybody, but maybe for Joe and I if we want to stay happy. All right, I digress. Let's get back on track here. A couple notable results on the weekend. Las Vegas, another results, by the way, pushes their win on the weekend to 10 games, 6-0-4, unbeaten. Not only is it the longest streak in organization history, it's the second longest streak unbeaten in 2024. If people don't remember, Sacramento Republic and the Charleston Battery both started the year 11 games unbeaten. Nate Worth becomes the youngest goal scorer in 2024 with his goal against the Charleston Battery and their 4-2 comeback victory. 17 years, 152 days. Joe, what were you doing at that age? Don't answer that question. Although Tulsa beat San Antonio FC 3-1 on the weekend, they were also coming off 3 consecutive games with a positive record, 2 draws and a win, and also 3 consecutive clean sheets. They had never done that in organization history. Kudos to Mario Sanchez and everything that you're trying to get done. By the way, that loss for San Antonio now puts them at 3 consecutive games. There was a win in between. They had 5 losses prior. If you do the math, that means they have 2 wins in their last 10 with 8 losses overall. A hard fall from grace for the champions. Sebastian Guenzati and their loss on the weekend. I say loss because the Charleston Battery actually smoked Indy 11, 5-0. By the way, Patriots point, that's 10 goals in 2 games. If you go back to the meeting between the two last year in the playoffs, 10 goals, 2 games, no goals for, plus 10 goal differential. That's bad. Sebastian Guenzati did grab his 200th regular season appearance. Aiden Quinn, the Mount Rushmore of USL Championship players, one of my personal favorites, and that left wand of a magical foot. Back, played 45 minutes, coming on for a substitute, Ben Mines, at halftime. Great to have him back. Also notable, Enzo Martinez goal in the 2-2 draw against Hartford. Couple of results in a row, I might add, for Hartford Athletic. Now, that pushes Enzo Martinez up to 73 goals. That's tied for 6th best all-time with the aforementioned Seba Guenzati. Okay, Joe, let's do this. Thought this was a great conversation during our match between Hartford and Detroit City. You asked me on air, and we were specific about the Eastern Conference, but you asked me on air, the top 8 in the Eastern Conference right now: Louisville, Charleston, Tampa, Indy, Birmingham, Loudoun, Detroit, Rhode Island. In no particular order, but I did it 1 to 8 anyway. If those would be the 8, if we cut the playoffs today, or excuse me, when we finish at the end of the year, would that be the 8? And I said, no, there would be changes. Agree or disagree? And if there are changes, who would it be?
I agree. I think there's only one change. I'm going to go as far as being specific about it. I think Detroit City falls out. And before Detroit City fans come for me, I think you're in a great spot going forward with Danny Cruz and the outlook there and what he's instilling. But I don't think it's clicking this year, and I think they're going to tumble. Rhode Island's hot. North Carolina's going to falter. Pittsburgh's taking that spot. And in a way, it's going to be a little bit of a quasi-revenge for last year with Detroit City upsetting Pittsburgh. And Detroit City is going to fall out. Pittsburgh's going to step in. And I don't want to be prisoner of the moment here with Pittsburgh, but I don't think Pittsburgh's going to be the 8 seed either. Pittsburgh's going to push.
There's more.
They're going to push Rhode Island, Loudoun to get to that 5-6 range. They are rolling, and the schedule sets up nicely, in my opinion, for the Riverhounds. And this week, tomorrow to be exact, on CBS Sports Network, it's the Riverhounds against Detroit City. So this is where that turn begins to happen.
Wow. Didn't see that coming, by the way. Not in terms of that rise. I'm with you. I do believe Detroit is the one that falls out. There's not enough on the attacking end. I do believe, as you said, that Danny Cruz, this will be the way of the path put forth in the future. They need a 9. They got to find a way to start getting more creative, and it all cannot rest on the shoulders of Maxi Rodriguez. As good as a year as he's having, and as much admiration that I have for him. Let's talk about the Western Conference. And I think you nailed it, by the way. Again, I hate saying it when you and I are in agreement upon everything, but
it's rare. It's too rare.
Yeah. New Mexico, Sac, Oakland, Memphis, Colorado Springs, Vegas, Orange County, Monterey Bay. For everybody at home who's not looking at a table, yes, once again, I did 1 through 8 in order. You're welcome. I can read and add in theory, just not on air during the middle of the game. Bottom of the playoff line right now: Phoenix, Tulsa, San Antonio, El Paso. Joe, does the Western Conference finish this way? Yes or no? And if not, who's up, who's down?
West is tough for me because I think
it's a diabolical mess.
Yeah, the East, which has not been the case in years past, more because of the MLS2 teams, but the East has typically not had the power. It's typically been in the West. That has shifted this year. And the West, as you mentioned, is a mess. You can draw a line for me at 6. Everything 6 and up. So that's New Mexico, Sac, Oakland, Memphis, Colorado Springs, Vegas. That's not changing. The order might change. Those 6 will be the top 6. Anything from 7 down to 10, I got no clue. I honestly don't know. It's Orange County, Monterey Bay, Phoenix, and Tulsa. You can lop off the Texas team. San Antonio and El Paso are done. But those middle 4 from 7 to 10, I genuinely have no idea. And I'm going to pivot back to you. I'm going to pass on this one.
I think you nailed it with the top 6. I've seen quality out of all of those teams. I would probably say that if I had to pick, Orange County and Phoenix for me. Not by a large margin, but that means Orange County's staying up, Phoenix is up, Monterey Bay is dropping. The reason I say Monterey Bay is dropping, while I don't think that Frank Yallop was getting the results necessary, I don't think anybody else is going to either. And I just don't see it there in terms of talent. They let too many good pieces. You know, we talked about Detroit, James Murphy, namely one of them. They let too many good pieces leave without having the results prior to coming into the year, and they didn't replace them either. The 9 specifically.
The team you didn't mention, though, there as you went through that, though, is Tulsa, who have games in hand. Tulsa's 2 points back of Orange County and Monterey Bay.
Losing Justin Portillo and hearing the rumors behind the scenes of just hearing the rumors of other players that could be on their way out. That has nothing to do with Mario, by the way. Nothing to do with the head coach whatsoever. That's why I'm hesitant. If I knew these players were staying, I would stay.
Three games in hand is significant, though.
And if I knew that personnel was going to be there, I would have no problem committing to that. Committal's not an issue of mine normally, but you get it. Here's a better question. Can anybody catch Louisville?
No, point blank. No, I don't. Right? I think it's done. You and I have had conversations this year about Charleston. Really, really good team. Could win it all again. But I think there's another dip in Charleston this regular season. I don't think there's another dip in Louisville this regular season. And they have 2 games in hand on Charleston.
I'm asked consistently from front office brass at USL, from people in production behind the scenes, where we're going in either conference and why, in terms of where the final is going to be. And my rhetoric from the beginning has always been, including on this show when Mike Watts got himself into trouble saying that Charleston Battery was miles ahead of everybody else, I said this: if we are not at Lynn Family Stadium come November, I would be absolutely shocked. That is because of them falling in the regular season and not being able to have hosting rights come postseason time, or slipping up in the playoffs. I think they are that good and having that good of a year. And we're going to give you a couple of numbers on the way out in the meantime, but I'm with you. East and West, certainly a ton to be played. 65% of the season done. Still a lot to go down. That's Joe Malfa. I'm Devon Kerr. You're listening to USL All Access on Sirius XM FC. We'll wrap it up when we come back.
You're listening to USL All Access on Sirius XM FC. Here are your hosts, Mike Watts and Devon Kerr.
Welcome back, everybody, to USL All Access. It's Tuesday. It's August 6th. It's 2024. I'm Devon Kerr. I'm just kidding. I can't do a show that way. And that is Joe Malfa. Mike Watts still out walking the cat. At this rate, he may never come back, but that could be okay because we've got some fun ones here for you. We're going to do a little preview. We're going to talk some footy, as we always do. And specifically, we're going to talk two of the best teams in the USL Championship. We just alluded to our feelings. Didn't allude. We told you. We think Louisville's incredible. Currently flying high in the Eastern Conference, coming off a win over Now and Then because of Sacramento's demise on the weekend. Number 1, New Mexico United. And just so that we're clear, New Mexico, 20 games played, 38 points. Louisville, 21 games played, 47 points. That's the points per game thing that I was kind of getting at earlier, because even though the Charleston Battery just won back at 46 points, they've also played 2 other games. Louisville on the weekend is going to host Sacramento Republic. We're going to start with a stat for you. Sacramento Republic is now 11 games unbeaten, dating back to 2023 to close out their season. They're chasing a record. We talked about it last week. They now get an opportunity to tie. So that we are clear, a tie or a win keeps you at unbeaten last time I checked. The record is currently held by 2 teams. Reno 1868 of 2017-2018, and the Rochester Raging Rhinos that still rammed their way into the history books in 2014-2015. That 15 team, one of the best defensive teams I've still ever seen. They also put a star above the crest. And yes, Bob Lilly was in fact the manager. Joe Malfa will have the call with myself at, what time is the game, Joe? Because I have no clue off the top of my head.
8 p.m. Eastern.
There we go. Fun one. That's
glad to know you'll be there on time. Jeez.
Prime time, baby. 8 o'clock Eastern time. Joe, normally Mike Watts is in the driver's seat, and he kind of lobs things up for me here. Role reversal. I love that. Let's talk about what it's like here for you in the driver's seat on the weekend, steering this ship in the correct direction in a matchup that is number 1 in the Eastern Conference, number 2 in the Western Conference. And for people that don't know, Danny Cruz and Mark Briggs, they know each other a little bit. Mark Briggs is actually Danny Cruz's son's godfather. So there's history, there's love, there's blood. What is it going to be on the weekend, though?
I think that there's hope on one side, at least, that it doesn't look how it looked last year, if you remember that game, because things went awry. Would you like to say awry is how things went last year?
Sure, you could say that.
Go back up and look.
I think it was a lot more rude than the verbiage that you're using.
Go back and look at that score from last year. So there's a hope that it doesn't go that way. But it's simply put, you're going to see 2 of the best teams in the league, one hot, one not. And I'm very curious to see how Louisville handles this weekend, because it very much could be one of those games for Sacramento where they're at their absolute best, trying to respond from what was them at one of their lowest points, I think, against Pittsburgh. So Louisville's going to have a lot to handle, but they're used to having that target on their back, and they wear it with pride, and the results don't falter because of it.
Do you feel like there is an edge in any area of the field for one specific team?
I think the edge goes... That's a great question. I'll pin that back to you. I don't know. I mean, because again, it's tough to separate Sacramento from our ideal vision of them versus how they're actually playing right now. If you look on paper, these are probably the 2 teams that you would on paper put into the final. come the fall because they're so evenly matched, because they're both so deep. So I don't know. There's a difference between reality and perception right now.
Top quality, I would take Sacramento over New Mexico. Current form, although back-to-back losses for New Mexico, I would still take New Mexico over Sac.
Right. So then if you transpose that then to Louisville here, the
I'm
edges go Louisville's way, but like on paper, I don't think so.
No, I'm with it. So, yeah, I think this way. I think the back lines cancel themselves out. I think the goalkeeping cancel themselves out. I think that the width should cancel itself out. I believe more right now in the midfield play of Louisville than I do of Sac, though I do think the ceiling is higher just based upon the way that they play and the emphasis that they give to the midfield players. But to me, the front line and the way that they move you, both attacking-wise and defensively, Ray Serrano, career year, you know, if it's Wilson Harris, which it most normally is, just the amount of aggression that you get, it doesn't allow you to stop ever. Resting defense does not exist because you are constantly moving. And so to me, that's where the edge lies.
And maybe to backtrack a second, coming off that game that I had, Sacramento and Pittsburgh, Shane Wheat got hurt and it didn't look good. He limped off in a sling and they were already down Lee Desmond, who was nursing a knock. So Chibu Kebu, the 17-year-old, made his debut off the bench. So they could be, for what you said was a push on the back end, there might actually be a pretty big edge Louisville's way, depending on the health for Sacramento.
Yep, we're going to have to wait and see on player availability. Again, that's Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Joe, we're on the Deuce, if I'm not mistaken.
Deuce. We are on the Deuce.
ESPN
Not the Ocho. Not the Ocho.
No.
The Deuce.
Oh, great things going on at the Ocho right now. Addicted to the Ocho, but not addicted to the game. That is 8 o'clock Eastern time. Just a fan, as we always are. Joe, before I leave and we depart this show, did you learn anything today?
I learned that cats need way more walking than they seem to need.
Yeah, that's fair. You didn't know that, did you?
No, did not.
And I learned that although certainly the show misses Mike Watts, that I don't mind sitting in the number one chair and barking orders at someone. And this is interesting on how it feels. We'll see how that looks in the future.
No comment.
We'll see how that looks in the future. Again, this is USL All Access on Sirius XM FC. Appreciate your time. Remember to join us. We're on a multitude of platforms outside of Sirius XM. You got USL's YouTube channel, CBS, ESPN. Certainly at some point in time during the middle of the night, I'm sure the Ocho shows up. That's neither here nor there. Appreciate you all listening. Have a good one.
This is USL All Access. If you missed any portion of the program, listen back anytime on the SXM app.